Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. It is Wednesday afternoon. No, it's not. It's Tuesday. Sorry, it's Tuesday afternoon, October 15th. It's a pretty nice day out. We had the windows open. There was a nice breeze coming through here, but you can't have the windows open for the videos. But anyway, I'm working on a 61 Roadster forward bulkhead today. Actually, Brent and I are kind of both working on it. We each did a little bit of this job. This is for a late 61 Roadster. And the customer worked at a Jag dealership back in the 80s. This car was sitting out back. It had gotten knocked around quite a bit. He picked it up cheap and has had it all that time. We're now restoring it. And it was kind of mashed in over here and over here. So I'll start out on this side here. We removed the complete firewall. Took the whole firewall out, drilled out all these spot welds. Brent made up a new firewall for it. So you can see this is our firewall here. These recesses are just right. Everything's the way it should be. This is our stabilizer bracket. We've got that in there. And so we pulled the firewall out and put a new one in. You can see in here the red oxide. While we had the firewall out, we got in there and scrubbed that all down, scuffed it, used sandpaper, wire wheels, whatever we had to get all the surface rust off, and then sprayed it with the red oxide. And then we've got 2 coats of a high quality primer on the back of this firewall. And then in all of the spot welded seams, we have a zinc weld through primer. Now, after we had the firewall off, and one of the reasons we had to take the firewall off, among others, over here, this scuttle was bashed in on the side, had some dents. There was also an antenna hole, and actually, since the makeup of the steel is just slightly different, if you shine over here, you can actually see the circle there of where the antenna was. I don't know if it'll pick it up on the video, and a lot of times Facebook will kind of degrade the video quality, but you can actually see there's just a slight difference in the alloy. But we welded up that antenna hole, and this is all nice. And then over here on this side is where most of the damage was. This firewall was wrinkled from about here to here, and it was kinked. The scuttle was kinked here. This is a natural spot where when you get hit, it's going to want to kink up. And it was really tough to get that shape back in there. You can see we've got our contour gauge here for the scuttle, and it's just right. And I've got this valley a lot better shaped now. Had to take care of that before I put the firewall on. So we took care of reshaping that. And then the inner heater ducts were all bashed up. We had to reshape that. It almost looked like this got into a wreck kind of out here somewhere with the heater on, obviously, and the heater got jammed back and really twisted things up. So we got that off. We put the firewall on. I have already drilled holes and punched holes, and we have plug welded. See, normally there would have been spot welds all around here. But because we're doing this in reverse order, we cannot now reach in through the top with a spot welder. So, since the scuttle was left on. So what we had to do was put holes in here and go ahead and plug weld that with a MIG. I've already done that and ground those down. And then I just got done spot welding this whole seam and this seam all the way around here with the big spot welder. And now you can see where I have some screws in here. This is what was holding it all together while I had it over at the big spot welder. I'm going to pull them out, drill out those holes a little bit, fill them in with the MIG welder. You can see I've got the bolts in here to get that flange set just right. And you also get a little slag sometimes on the spot welds. And so that'll all get scraped and scuffed off. And while I'm at it, I thought I would show you a few of my little tips and tricks here since you're seeing these screws. Typically, in metalworking, people will use these. This is called a cleco. You drill an 1/8" hole in your 2 panels, and then you have this special cleco tool, and it will come out like that. You stick it in the hole, and then it grabs. But what I find is that if you're doing really fine work on a new aluminum body, or you're working on airplane panels or something like that, these work great. E-types really need and like to be pulled together tightly. It's steel, so it's got a little more resistance, and you've really got to clamp stuff together. You can see here's an example of a cleco that has just been bent and mangled up because they can't hold the force down. So what I like to use instead, which is also a lot easier because it's self-drilling, I use these little, you can zoom in on it right there, see what it looks like. These are little self-drilling screws. They have a 1/4 inch hex head. Right here we've got a 1/4 inch bit. It's magnetic. You've got a little self-drilling tip on there. You can walk right up, drill right through 2 of them, and as long as you don't go overboard, I mean, this is a great tool, and it will run right through there, no problem. So you got to be gentle. It'll screw those together nice and tightly. And like I said, then I come along, I pull the screws out. I'll take a 1/4 inch bit and just kind of come down through the top to just get through that top layer a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and weld those 2 up just like a regular plug weld. So there's one little tip for you. These screws are great. I would get these. Get hundreds of them. They come in packs of 100. You can get them in any one of the big box stores. Talked about the spot welding over there with the big spot welder. We are fanatics about checking for penetration and making sure we're getting a good weld. This is a test piece, and also I was bedding in the new tips. But this is a 3-layer test. This is what we call a nugget. This is what you want, and this is how you test it. You weld it on there, and then you rip it back off, and you make sure that a piece of this gets stuck to this. That is a good spot weld. And you can see here where I was also testing to make sure I was getting the penetration I needed with the zinc weld-through primer. So that's that. If you look at all these spot welds, you'll see there's varying degrees of success because you've got to adjust the timer for how many layers there are. Right here, you've got 2 layers of 20 gauge. Over here, you've got 3 layers of 20 gauge. And right in here with the stiffening piece for the pedal box, you've got 3 layers of 20 gauge and 1 layer of 16 gauge. I've also gone ahead and tried to make these not spaced perfectly because if you make them too perfect, it doesn't look original. And then the last thing is, I told you that I had gone ahead and plug welded here because we couldn't use the spot welder to come down in since the scuttle was still on. We clean this off. Normally we'd use a big angle grinder with a flat disc, but you can't get in there. These things are called roll-lock discs. They're great for getting in little tight places. It's got this little attachment thing that you put in a drill, and then they've got little backwards threads here where you screw them in here. And you can see it comes in different grits. I think this is a 40 and this is an 80. And so you just grind that down, and it takes time, but it does a really good job. So that's it. After we get that done, we will go ahead and blow out all the shavings and everything. We'll continue to move forward by hammering and dollying this. And then in a few weeks or maybe a couple months, we'll be mounting this up to a whole new floor assembly and building this whole shell. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.